The elevator doors wouldn't close. That was the problem. But it wasn't really about the elevator. A boy stood in the hallway. 14, maybe 15, hands at his sides, calm in a way that didn't make sense. Around him, men in expensive suits whispered, pointed. One of them laughed. Not cruel, just automatic. The kind of laugh you give when a child says something impossible. The boy had said 5 words. I can fix this. The millionaire stood 10 feet away, watching, silent. His entire building had stopped moving because of one broken machine. Contractors said 2 days minimum, maybe 3. But this boy, this kid who'd somehow walked past security, stood there like he'd already solved it. The millionaire's hands went still, completely still, for the first time in 12 years. And he asked the question he didn't mean to ask. You? The boy nodded. What happened next changed everything. But not the way you think. Before we go any further, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. I want to know this story is reaching you, whether you're in Texas, Toronto, Lagos, London, or somewhere I've never even heard of. Your comment matters. Now, let's get back to where it all began. His hands never stopped moving. Sign here. Check this. Approve that. The millionaire lived inside a machine he'd built himself. Every minute had a purpose. Every problem had a person assigned to it. Every interruption had a price. He hadn't touched a broken thing in 12 years. Not a door. Not a wire. Not a problem that mattered. Because that's what money does. It creates distance. Between you and the mess. Between you and the waiting. Between you and anything that might waste your time. His office was silent except for the sound of papers sliding across mahogany. No chaos. No voices raised. Just the hum of things working exactly as they should. He checked his watch. 3 meetings down. For to go? His assistant entered without knocking. That was the rule. Knock, and you've already failed. If you're interrupting, it better be worth it. Sir, there's an issue with the East Wing elevator. He didn't look up. Call maintenance. They're already here. It's not responding. Then call the contractor. They said it's beyond them. Now he looked up. Beyond them. She nodded. How long until it's fixed? They're saying 2 days. Maybe 3. His jaw tightened. 2 days meant rerouting staff. Rescheduling deliveries. Shifting an entire floor's operations. All because of one machine. He stood. I'll handle it. Not because he wanted to. Because no one else could move fast enough. He walked through hallways that smelled like leather and imported wood. Everything here had been chosen. Controlled. Perfected. The elevator sat open on the ground floor. Doors frozen halfway. Panel dark. A small crowd had gathered. Security. Staff. People waiting for someone to tell them what to do. He stepped forward, already calculating. Who to call. How much it would cost. How fast he could make this someone else's problem. Then he saw him. A boy. Maybe 14. 15 at most. Standing near the panel with his hands at his sides. Not fidgeting. Not nervous. Just watching. The millionaire frowned. Who let him in? No one answered. The boy turned. Looked right at him. No fear. No awe. Just calm. And then the boy said 5 words that made no sense. I can fix this. The millionaire blinked. Around him, a few people smiled. One person laughed softly. Not cruel. Just automatic. The kind of laugh you give when a child says something innocent and impossible. The boy didn't react. Didn't defend himself. Didn't explain. He just stood there. Hands still. Eyes steady. The millionaire felt something he hadn't felt in years. Confusion. Not anger. Not irritation. Just the strange sensation of not knowing what to do next. Because this boy wasn't begging. Wasn't selling. Wasn't performing. He was just certain. The millionaire checked his watch again. He had 4 meetings left. A dinner at 7. A call with Tokyo at 9. He didn't have time for this. But something about the boy's stillness made him pause. Just for a second. Just long enough to ask the question he didn't mean to ask. You? The boy nodded. I can fix this. The millionaire looked at the elevator. At the frozen doors. At the contractors shaking their heads in the corner. Then he looked back at the boy. And for the first time in 12 years, he didn't immediately walk away. The boy didn't belong here. That much was obvious. His clothes were clean but worn. His shoes had been resoled twice. He carried nothing. No tools. No bag. No phone in his hand like everyone else. He just stood there, watching the elevator like it was a puzzle he'd already solved. The millionaire studied him. "What's your name?" "Caleb." "Caleb what?" "Just Caleb." The millionaire's assistant stepped closer, voice low. "Sir, we don't know how he got in. Security's checking now." He waved her off. His eyes stayed on the boy. "You said you can fix this." Caleb nodded. "How?" "I need to see the panel." The contractors already looked at the panel. "I know." The millionaire tilted his head. "And you think you know something they don't?" "I think they're looking at the wrong thing." One of the contractors scoffed. An older man with grease on his hands and 20 years of experience in his posture. "Kid, we've been doing this since before you were born." Caleb didn't argue, didn't defend. He just looked at the contractor with the same calm he'd given everyone else. "Then you know the relay system can override itself if the voltage drops below threshold." The contractor blinked. The millionaire's hand stopped moving. That wasn't a guess. That was specific, technical, accurate. The contractor looked at the millionaire, then back at Caleb. "Where'd you learn that?" "I read the manual." "What manual?" "The one for this model. It's online." The millionaire felt something shift in the room. The laughter from earlier had evaporated. Now people were watching. Actually watching. Caleb stepped toward the panel. Slowly. Not rushing. Not performing. He knelt down. Ran his fingers along the edge of the metal casing. Not randomly. Like he was feeling for something. "This panel's been opened before." The contractor frowned. "Yeah. By us. 10 minutes ago." "No. Before that." He pressed his thumb against a small dent in the corner. "Someone forced this. Stripped the screw trying to get it back in. It's been loose for weeks. Maybe months." The millionaire crouched slightly. He could see it now. The tiny imperfection Caleb was pointing to. Something he'd walked past 100 times without noticing. And that's the problem? That's part of it. Caleb stood. Looked at the frozen doors. The relay's fine. But the safety sensor thinks the door's still open. That's why it won't move. The signal's crossed. The contractor crossed his arms. "If that's true, it's a 2-day job. You have to pull the whole system. Recalibrate from the ground up." Caleb shook his head. "Not if you reset the sensor manually. You can't reset it manually. It's hardwired. You can. If you bypass the secondary lock." The millionaire's assistant leaned in again. "Sir, we can't let him." He raised a hand. Silence. His eyes hadn't left Caleb. "You've done this before." It wasn't a question. Caleb met his gaze. "Not on this model. But close enough." The millionaire straightened. Checked his watch. "For meetings. Dinner at 7. Tokyo at 9. He should have walked away. Should have let the contractors handle it their way. 2 days. 3 days. It didn't matter. He had people for this. But something about the boy's certainty made him stay. He looked at the contractor. "Give him 10 minutes." "Sir." 10 minutes. If he can't do it, you take over." The contractor didn't look happy. But he nodded. Caleb didn't smile. Didn't thank him. He just turned back to the panel and knelt down again. His hands moved carefully. Precisely. No hesitation. The millionaire watched those hands. They didn't shake. Didn't rush. They moved like they'd done this 1,000 times. And for the first time in years, the millionaire realized something. He didn't remember what his own hands felt like when they used to work like that. When they used to fix things instead of signing orders for someone else to fix them. Caleb pulled a thin piece of metal from the panel. Adjusted something inside. Slid it back. Then he stood. Pressed the button. Nothing happened. The contractor smirked. The millionaire's jaw tightened. Caleb didn't panic. He just tilted his head. Looked at the doors. Then back at the panel. One more thing. He reached in again. This time, when he pressed the button, the door slid shut. Smooth. Quiet. Perfect. The elevator hummed to life. The crowd went silent. Caleb stepped back. Wiped his hands on his pants. Looked at the millionaire. "It's fixed." The millionaire stared at the elevator doors. They were closed. Smooth. Like nothing had ever been wrong. Around him, the crowd shifted. Whispers started. Someone pulled out their phone. The contractor walked to the panel. Checked it himself. Pressed the button. The elevator opened. Closed. Opened again. Perfect. He turned to Caleb. How'd you know about the secondary lock? It's in the schematic. Nobody reads the schematic. I did. The contractor shook his head. Not angry. Just confused. The millionaire's assistant stepped forward. Sir, your next meeting starts in 8 minutes. He didn't move. His eyes were still on Caleb. Where did you learn this? Caleb shrugged. Library. Online. Wherever I could find the manuals. Why? Because things break. And most people don't know how to fix them anymore. That landed differently than it should have. The millionaire felt it in his chest. A small ache he couldn't name. He glanced at his own hands. Clean. Smooth. No calluses. No scars. Nothing that suggested they'd ever built or repaired anything. He looked back at Caleb. You're not from around here. No. How'd you get in? I walked. Past security? They thought I was with the contractors. The millionaire almost smiled. Almost. His assistant cleared her throat. Sir, your meeting. He nodded. But he didn't leave yet. He looked at Caleb one more time. Thank you. Caleb nodded. Didn't say anything. The millionaire turned to walk away. Then Caleb spoke. There's something else. The millionaire stopped. What? The elevator. It's fixed. But it's not the real problem. Everyone froze. The contractor frowned. What are you talking about? It's working. It's working now. But the relay's old. The wiring's been patched 3 times. Whoever installed this cut corners. You're going to have the same issue again in 2 months. Maybe less. The contractor's face went red. Kid, I've been doing this for. I know. But I'm not wrong. The millionaire stepped closer. You're saying this will break again? Yes. And you know how to stop that? Caleb nodded. How long would it take? A day? Maybe 2. The contractor laughed. Not mean. Just automatic. A day? Kid, to rewire this system properly, you'd need a team. Permits. Equipment. You can't just. I don't need a team. The contractor stopped talking. The millionaire's hands went still. You're serious? Caleb looked at him. No hesitation. No doubt. I can fix this. The right way. The millionaire studied him. This boy who'd walked past security. Who'd read manuals no one else bothered with. Who'd fixed in 10 minutes what professionals said would take 2 days. He should have said no. Should have thanked him and sent him on his way. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the certainty in Caleb's voice. Maybe it was the way his hands had moved. Steady, confident, unafraid. Or maybe it was the uncomfortable truth that he couldn't remember the last time he'd fixed anything himself. He checked his watch. 2 days. Caleb nodded. You have 48 hours. If this isn't done by then, you leave. No argument. Okay. And if it breaks again after you're done? It won't. The millionaire stared at him. That certainty again. Unshakable. He looked at his assistant. Clear my schedule for the next 2 days. Reschedule the Tokyo call. Move the dinner. Her eyes went wide. Sir, the Tokyo call is with. I know who it's with. Move it. She hesitated. Then nodded. The millionaire looked back at Caleb. You'll have access to whatever you need. Tools. Parts. Anything. Caleb shook his head. I just need the elevator. That's it. That's it. The millionaire crossed his arms. Why are you doing this? Caleb tilted his head. Like the question confused him. Because it needs to be fixed. That's not a reason. It's the only reason. The millionaire opened his mouth. Then closed it. Because he didn't have a response to that. Around him, the crowd was still watching. Waiting. The contractor looked like he wanted to argue. But he didn't. The assistant checked her tablet. Already rescheduling. And Caleb just stood there. Calm. Ready. The millionaire stepped back. 48 hours. Caleb nodded. I can fix this. The millionaire walked toward his office. But halfway down the hall, he stopped. Turned. Watched Caleb kneel by the panel again. Hands already moving. And for the first time in 12 years, He wondered what he'd given up when he stopped using his own. The millionaire didn't go to his meeting. He told himself he would. Told himself this was just a quick check. 5 minutes. Then he'd leave. That was 3 hours ago. Now he stood in the hallway, watching. Caleb had taken over the entire ground floor. Tools spread across the marble. Panels removed. Wires exposed like veins. The boy worked in silence. No music. No phone. Just focus. The millionaire's assistant appeared beside him. Sir, the board is asking about the Tokyo reschedule. Tell them I'm handling something. They want specifics. Tell them it's being handled. She hesitated, then left. He kept watching. Caleb's hands moved with precision. Every motion deliberate. No wasted movement. No second guessing. The millionaire hadn't seen anyone work like that in years. Most people rushed, checked their phones, took breaks. Caleb didn't stop, didn't look around, didn't perform for the audience that had slowly gathered. Security, staff, even a few executives who'd heard about the boy fixing the elevator. One of them stepped closer to the millionaire. Is this really necessary? We could hire a proper team. The millionaire didn't look away from Caleb. He said 48 hours. And you believe him? I'm giving him the chance to prove it. The executive frowned. What if he fails? Then he fails. And you've wasted 2 days. The millionaire finally turned. Have I? The executive didn't answer. Just walked away. The millionaire checked his watch. 10 hours gone. 38 left. He should have felt anxious. Should have regretted the decision. But he didn't. He felt something else. Something he hadn't felt in a long time. Curious. Caleb stood, stretched, rolled his shoulders, then knelt back down and kept working. The millionaire walked closer. Do you need anything? Caleb didn't look up. No. Food. I'm fine. Water. Later. The millionaire stood there, hands in his pockets, feeling useless. How much longer? I don't know yet. You said 2 days. I said maybe 2 days. That's not the same thing. Caleb paused, looked up at him. Do you want me to hurry, or do you want me to do it right? The millionaire blinked. No one talked to him like that. Not his assistant. Not his board. Not anyone. But Caleb wasn't being rude. He was just being honest. The millionaire almost smiled. Do it right. Caleb nodded. Went back to work. The millionaire stood there a moment longer, then turned to leave. He made it 5 steps. Sir. He stopped. Turned. Caleb was looking at him now. Really looking. Why are you still here? The millionaire frowned. What do you mean? You have meetings, calls, things that matter more than this. This matters. Why? The millionaire opened his mouth, closed it. He didn't have an answer. Or maybe he did. He just didn't want to say it out loud. Because standing here watching someone fix something with their own hands felt more real than anything he'd done in months. Caleb tilted his head. You don't trust me. I don't know you. Then why'd you give me 48 hours? The millionaire stepped closer. Because you were certain. And I haven't seen that in a long time. Caleb studied him, then nodded. I won't waste it. I know. The millionaire turned again. This time he kept walking. But as he reached his office, his assistant was waiting. Sir, there's a problem. His jaw tightened. What kind of problem? The parts Caleb needs. They're not standard. We'd have to order them custom. 3-day minimum. 3 days. At least. The millionaire's hands clenched. He has 38 hours left. I know. But without those parts. Find them. Sir, I've called every supplier in the city. They don't stock. Then find someone who does. She stared at him. This is important to you. It wasn't a question. The millionaire didn't answer. He just walked into his office and closed the door. Inside, he sat at his desk. The same desk where he'd signed 1,000 deals. Made 1,000 decisions. Built an empire. But right now, none of that felt as important as a boy in the hallway trying to fix an elevator. He checked his watch again. 38 hours. The clock was running. And for the first time in 12 years, he wasn't sure he wanted it to stop. 22 hours in. The millionaire hadn't slept. Neither had Caleb. The parts arrived at midnight. Not from a supplier. from a retired electrician 3 states away who happened to have the exact relay system Caleb needed. The millionaire paid triple, had it flown in on a private courier. He didn't tell Caleb that part. Now he stood in the hallway again, coffee in hand, watching. Caleb had the entire panel disassembled. The elevator shaft was exposed. Wires hung like roots from a tree. It looked worse than when they started. The contractor walked past, shook his head. This is a mess. The millionaire didn't respond. Caleb worked through the night, silent, focused, his hands steady even as exhaustion crept into his shoulders. At dawn, the millionaire's assistant brought food. Caleb ate without stopping, one hand holding a sandwich, the other reconnecting wires. The millionaire watched those hands. They didn't tremble, didn't hesitate. Even tired, they knew exactly what to do. He thought about his own hands, how they used to feel, back when he built things instead of buying them, back when he knew what it meant to create something from nothing. Caleb stood, wiped his forehead. I need to test the relay. The millionaire stepped forward. Will it work? I don't know yet. But you think it will. Caleb looked at him. I did everything right. But sometimes that's not enough. The millionaire felt that sentence sit heavy in his chest. Caleb walked to the panel, flipped a switch. Nothing happened. The crowd that had gathered held their breath. Caleb frowned, checked the connection, adjusted something, flipped the switch again. Still nothing. The contractor crossed his arms. Told you. The millionaire's jaw tightened. But Caleb didn't panic. He just knelt down, traced the wire with his finger, followed it back to the source. Then he stopped. There. He pulled a small piece of corrosion from the connection point. Something so small you'd miss it if you weren't looking. He cleaned it, reattached the wire, stood, flipped the switch. The elevator hummed. Low at first, then stronger. The lights on the panel flickered, then glowed steady. Caleb pressed the button. The doors closed. Smooth. Quiet. Then they opened again. Perfect. The crowd erupted, clapping, cheering. But Caleb didn't celebrate. He just watched the elevator, making sure it moved the way it should. The millionaire stepped closer. You did it. Caleb shook his head. Not yet. What do you mean? It's working. It's working now. But I need to run it through a full cycle. Make sure the relay holds under load. Make sure the safety sensors sync properly. How long will that take? 6 hours. Maybe 8. The millionaire checked his watch. 18 hours left. And if something goes wrong during the test? Caleb met his eyes. Then I fix it. The millionaire stared at him. This boy who'd worked through the night, who'd refused to celebrate too early, who understood that doing something right meant doing it completely. He thought about all the projects he'd approved over the years, all the half-finished work he'd accepted because good enough was easier than perfect, all the times he'd settled. Caleb turned back to the panel. I need everyone to clear the area. If the relay fails during testing, it could cause a power surge. The security team started moving people back. The millionaire didn't move. That includes you. The millionaire looked at Caleb. I'm staying. It's not safe. I'm staying. Caleb studied him, then nodded. Your choice. He flipped another switch. The elevator began moving. Up, down, up again. Each cycle smooth. Each stop precise. But the millionaire noticed something. Caleb's hands weren't relaxed anymore. They were tense, hovering near the emergency shutoff. What's wrong? Caleb didn't take his eyes off the panel. Nothing yet. But you're expecting something. I'm being careful. The elevator completed another cycle. Then another. On the 5th cycle, there was a sound. Small. Almost nothing. But Caleb heard it. His hand shot to the emergency shutoff. The elevator stopped. Silence filled the hallway. The millionaire's heart pounded. What was that? Caleb knelt by the panel. Listened. Then he stood. Looked at the millionaire. We have a problem. The problem wasn't the relay. It was the cable. Caleb traced it with his flashlight. Up into the shaft. Past the 3rd floor. All the way to the pulley system. There's a fray. Small. But it's there. The millionaire looked up into the darkness. How bad? Bad enough that it'll snap eventually. Could be a week. Could be tomorrow. Can you fix it? Caleb was quiet for a moment. Yes, but not in 18 hours. The millionaire's stomach dropped. How long? To do it right? 2 days. Maybe 3. You said 48 hours. I said maybe 48 hours. And that was before I found this. The millionaire's hands clenched. Around them, the crowd had gone silent. Everyone listening. The contractor stepped forward. This is what happens when you trust a kid to do a professional's job. Caleb didn't react, just kept looking at the cable. The millionaire turned to the contractor. Could you fix it faster? The contractor hesitated. No. He's right. This is a 3-day job minimum. You need to order a new cable. Get certified installers. Pull permits. So we're back where we started. Worse, actually, because now the whole system's exposed. The millionaire looked at Caleb. The boy was still staring up into the shaft, his jaw tight, his hands pressed against the wall. For the first time since this started, he looked unsure. The millionaire stepped closer. What are you thinking? Caleb didn't answer right away. Then he spoke, quietly. There's another way. What way? I can reinforce the cable. Wrap it. Redistribute the load. It won't be permanent, but it'll hold for 6 months. Maybe a year. The contractor laughed. That's a Band-Aid, not a fix. Caleb finally looked at him. A Band-Aid that works is better than a fix that takes too long. The contractor's smile faded. The millionaire checked his watch. 17 hours left. How long would the reinforcement take? 12 hours. If nothing goes wrong. And if something goes wrong? Caleb met his eyes. Then I'm out of time. The millionaire stood there, silent. This wasn't what he'd signed up for. This wasn't the clean, simple fix he'd expected. This was risk. Real risk. He thought about walking away, calling it off, going back to his meetings and his calls and his life where other people handled the mess. But then he looked at Caleb. The boy hadn't moved, hadn't made excuses, hadn't blamed anyone. He'd just found the problem and offered a solution, even knowing he might fail. The millionaire took a breath. Do it. The contractor shook his head. This is insane. Then leave. The contractor stared at him, then turned and walked away. The millionaire looked at his assistant. Get him whatever he needs. Tools. Materials. Anything. She nodded. Caleb was already moving, pulling rope from his bag, measuring, calculating. The millionaire watched him work. Those hands again, moving with purpose even under pressure. He thought about the last time he'd faced a deadline like this. The last time failure actually felt possible. He couldn't remember. Somewhere along the way, he'd insulated himself from risk, from uncertainty, from the feeling of not knowing if something would work. And watching Caleb now, he realized something. He missed it. Hours passed. Caleb climbed into the shaft, disappeared into the darkness. The millionaire stood at the opening, listening to the sound of rope being wound, metal scraping metal. His assistant approached. Sir, the board wants an update. Tell them I'm busy. They're threatening to override your decision. He looked at her. Let them try. She blinked, then nodded and walked away. The millionaire checked his watch again. 10 hours left. From inside the shaft, there was a loud clang. Then silence. The millionaire's heart stopped. Caleb. No answer. Caleb. Still nothing. He leaned into the shaft. Looked up. Darkness. Then he heard it. A cough. I'm fine. The millionaire exhaled. What happened? Dropped a wrench. Broke one of the support brackets. Can you fix it? There was a pause. I have to. The millionaire closed his eyes. This was taking too long. Costing too much. Risking too much. But he didn't stop it. Because somewhere deep down, in a place he'd forgotten existed, he needed to see if Caleb could actually do this. He needed to see if certainty could beat impossible odds. He needed to know if fixing something the right way still mattered. 8 hours left. The clock kept ticking. 5 hours left. Caleb emerged from the shaft. His shirt was torn. Grease covered his arms. A small cut ran across his cheek. But his hands were steady. The millionaire handed him water. Caleb drank without stopping, then set the bottle down. It's reinforced. The cable should hold. Should, will, it will hold. The millionaire studied his face, looking for doubt. He found none. What's next? I need to test the weight distribution. Run the elevator through a full load cycle. How long? 3 hours. The millionaire checked his watch. That would leave 2 hours before the deadline. No room for error. Caleb walked back to the panel, started reconnecting systems. His movement slower now, fatigue setting in. The millionaire watched him. When's the last time you did something like this? Caleb didn't look up. Like what? Work on something this big, this complicated. Caleb was quiet for a moment. Last year, there was a building downtown, old factory being converted to apartments. They were going to tear out the whole electrical system, replace it, and I told them I could save it, rewire it, make it work. The millionaire stepped closer. Did they let you? Caleb shook his head, said I was too young, too inexperienced. Hired a professional firm instead. What happened? They ripped everything out. Started from scratch. Took 6 months. Cost 3 times the budget. And your way? Would have taken 3 weeks. Cost 1/3 of what they paid. The millionaire was silent. But they didn't trust you. No. Why not? Caleb finally looked at him. Because I didn't look like someone who knew what I was doing. That sentence hung in the air. The millionaire felt it settle in his chest. Heavy. Familiar. He thought about something he hadn't thought about in years. 23 years old. Standing in a boardroom. Presenting an idea he knew would work. Watching older men dismiss him without listening. Watching them choose experience over innovation. Watching them fail because they couldn't see past his age. He'd forgotten that feeling. The certainty mixed with helplessness. The knowledge that you're right, but no one will let you prove it. He looked at Caleb. Really looked at him. And he saw himself. Not as he was now, but as he used to be. Before the empire. Before the distance. Before he stopped fixing things with his own hands. Caleb turned back to the panel. You didn't have to give me this chance. The millionaire's throat tightened. I know. So why did you? He didn't answer right away. Because the truth was complicated. Because he'd seen something in Caleb that reminded him of who he used to be. Because watching someone fight for the chance to prove themselves felt like watching his younger self in a mirror. Because somewhere along the way, he'd become the person who said no instead of the person who had to hear it. But he didn't say any of that. He just said, because you were certain. Caleb nodded. Went back to work. The millionaire stood there, hands in his pockets. His assistant appeared. Sir, the board is demanding you attend the emergency meeting. They say if you don't, tell them I'm not available. Sir, I'm not available. She stared at him, then left. The millionaire walked to the window, looked out at the city. He'd built all of this. Every building, every deal, every success. But he couldn't remember the last time he'd felt the way Caleb looked. Focused, present, alive. He'd traded that for control, for distance, for the ability to never have to struggle again. And standing here now, he wasn't sure it was worth it. Caleb's voice broke through his thoughts. I'm ready to test. The millionaire turned. Already. The system's back online. I just need to run the load test. And if it fails? Caleb met his eyes. It won't. There it was again. That certainty. The millionaire nodded. Do it. Caleb pressed the button. The elevator doors closed. Then it began moving. Up to the top floor. Down to the basement. Up again. Each cycle smooth. The millionaire watched the panel. Watched the numbers climb and fall. Watched Caleb's hands hover near the emergency shutoff. Ready. Just in case. The elevator completed 10 cycles. Then 20. Then 50. No sound. No hesitation. No problems. Caleb finally stepped back. It's done. The millionaire stared at the elevator. That's it. That's it. He checked his watch. 2 hours and 14 minutes before the deadline. Caleb had done it. Actually done it. The millionaire should have felt relief. Should have felt satisfied. But all he felt was empty. Because this was over. And he'd have to go back to his meetings. His calls. His life. Back to a world where he signed papers instead of fixing things. Back to being the person who'd forgotten what his hands used to know. Caleb started packing his tools. The millionaire watched him. and wondered what he'd just lost. The elevator worked perfectly. For 3 days, it ran without issue. Smooth, silent, flawless. The board was satisfied. The staff relieved. The contractor quietly impressed. Everyone moved on. Everyone except the millionaire. He stood in his office, looking out at the city, but not really seeing it. His assistant knocked. "Sir, the contracts for the Singapore deal are ready for signature." He didn't turn around. "Leave them on the desk." She hesitated. "Is everything all right?" "Fine." She left. But everything wasn't fine. The elevator was fixed. The problem was solved. Life had returned to normal. So why did he feel worse than before? He walked to his desk, looked at the contracts. 50 pages of terms and conditions and projections, all requiring his signature. He picked up the pen. His hand hovered over the paper, then stopped. He set the pen down, walked out of his office, down the hall, to the elevator. It stood there, doors closed, panel glowing. He pressed the button. The doors opened. Smooth. Perfect. He stepped inside, pressed the button for the top floor. The elevator moved. No sound, no hesitation. Everything Caleb promised. But as he rode up, all he could think about was the boy's hands. How they'd moved with certainty. How they'd known exactly what to do. How they'd fixed something broken and made it whole. The elevator reached the top floor. He didn't get out. He pressed the button for the basement. Rode back down. Up again. Down again. Like he was testing it. Like he didn't trust it. But that wasn't it. He was looking for something. Some flaw. Some reason to call Caleb back. Some excuse to watch those hands work again. The elevator stopped on the ground floor. The doors opened. He stood there. His assistant was waiting. "Sir, the board meeting starts in 10 minutes. He looked at her. "Cancel it." "Sir, cancel the meeting. Cancel my afternoon. Cancel everything." "For how long?" "I don't know yet." She stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. He walked past her, out the front entrance, into the street. He didn't know where he was going. He just walked, past buildings he owned, past businesses he'd invested in, past a world he'd built but somehow stopped being part of. And then he saw it. A small repair shop, tucked between 2 high-rises. The kind of place he would have walked past 1,000 times without noticing. He stopped, looked in the window. An old man sat inside, working on a radio, hands moving slowly, carefully, the same way Caleb's had. The millionaire stood there, watching. The old man looked up, saw him, smiled, waved him inside. The millionaire hesitated, then walked in. The shop smelled like solder and oil and dust, shelves packed with parts, tools hanging on every wall. It reminded him of something from a long time ago. "Can I help you?" The millionaire looked at the old man. "I don't know." The old man smiled. "That's usually when people need help the most." The millionaire walked closer, looked at the radio. "What's wrong with it?" "Bad capacitor. Simple fix." "Can I watch?" The old man raised an eyebrow. "You want to watch me fix a radio?" "Yes." The old man shrugged. "Suit yourself." He went back to work, and the millionaire stood there, watching those old hands move with the same certainty Caleb's had, the same certainty his own hands used to have, before he'd built the empire, before he'd hired people to fix things for him, before he'd forgotten what it felt like to create something with his own hands. The old man finished, turned the radio on. Music filled the shop. He smiled. "There we go." The millionaire stared at the radio. "How long did that take you to learn?" "To fix radios?" 50 years. Give or take. Was it worth it?" The old man looked at him, really looked at him. "Son, I've spent my whole life fixing broken things. And you know what I've learned?" The millionaire waited. Most people don't actually want things fixed. They want them replaced. Faster. Easier. Less mess. He set the radio down. But fixing something, really fixing it, that takes time. It takes patience. It takes being willing to get your hands dirty. He looked at the millionaire's hands. Clean. Smooth. Unblemished. "When's the last time you fixed something yourself?" The millionaire opened his mouth, then closed it, because he couldn't remember. The old man nodded. "That's what I thought." The millionaire stood there, silent. Then he spoke, quietly. I used to. A long time ago. What happened? I got successful. The old man smiled. Sad. That'll do it. The millionaire looked at his hands. And for the first time in 12 years, he saw what he'd lost. Not money. Not power. Not success. Something deeper. Something that couldn't be bought back. He looked at the old man. Can you teach me? The old man blinked. Teach you what? How to fix things again. The old man stared at him, then laughed. Not cruel, just surprised. You're serious? Yes. The old man studied him, then nodded. All right, but it won't be easy. The millionaire's hands finally went still. Completely still. I know. 6 months passed. The millionaire spent every Tuesday in that repair shop, learning to solder, to wire, to fix. His hands changed. Calluses formed. Small scars appeared. His assistant thought he'd lost his mind. The board questioned his priorities. But he kept going back, because every time he fixed something, he remembered a little more of who he used to be. Then one Tuesday, he arrived at the shop and found it closed. A note on the door. Emergency. Back next week. The millionaire stood there, unsure what to do. He walked back toward his building, past the elevator. Stopped. Something was different. He stepped closer. The panel looked fine. The doors worked. Everything seemed normal. But there was a sound. Faint. Almost nothing. The same sound he'd heard 6 months ago when Caleb had stopped the test. His heart sank. He pulled out his phone. Called maintenance. I need someone to check the East Wing elevator. Now. 20 minutes later, a technician arrived. Ran diagnostics. Checked the systems. Everything looks fine, sir. Check the cable. Sir, the cable was just reinforced 6 months ago. It shouldn't. Check it anyway. The technician climbed into the shaft. 5 minutes later, he came back down. His face was pale. The reinforcement is failing. The cable's starting to fray again. The millionaire's hands clenched. How long until it breaks? Could be a month. Could be tomorrow. We need to shut it down immediately. Do it. The technician sealed off the elevator. The millionaire stood there, staring at it. 6 months. Caleb said it would last 6 months. Maybe a year. He'd been exact. Even then, he'd known. The millionaire pulled out his phone again. Find Caleb, the boy who fixed the elevator 6 months ago. His assistant's voice came through. Sir, we don't have any contact information for him. Then find it. Sir, find him. He hung up, stood there in the empty hallway. And suddenly, he understood. 6 months ago, he'd given Caleb a chance because the boy reminded him of himself. Young, certain, dismissed by everyone. But that wasn't the whole truth. The real reason he'd said yes was because he'd wanted to see if certainty was enough. If being right mattered when the world didn't believe you. If fixing something the right way was worth the fight. And Caleb had proven it was. But now the millionaire saw something else. Something that made his chest ache. 27 years ago, he'd been Caleb, standing in a boardroom, trying to convince older men to take a chance on his idea. An idea he knew would work. An idea that would have changed everything. They'd said no. Too young. Too risky. Too uncertain. They'd gone with someone else. Someone experienced. Someone safe. That someone had failed. And by the time they came back to him, it was too late. The opportunity was gone. He'd built his empire after that. Brick by brick. Success after success. But he'd never forgotten that moment. The moment when certainty wasn't enough. When being right didn't matter. When no one would give him the chance to prove it. Standing here now, staring at this elevator, he finally understood what he'd done. He'd become the person who'd said no to him. The person who dismissed. Who doubted. Who didn't believe. Until Caleb showed up. And forced him to remember. His phone rang. Sir, we found him. The millionaire's throat tightened. Where? There's a construction site downtown. Old factory building. He's been working there for the past 3 months. The millionaire closed his eyes. What's he doing there? Electrical work. The foreman says he's the best they've ever seen. Did they almost not hire him? His assistant was quiet for a moment. Yes. How did you know? Because history repeats itself. Because the world still doesn't trust certainty when it comes from someone young. Because nothing had changed. Except him. The millionaire opened his eyes. I'm going there. Now. Sir, you have. Cancel it. All of it. He walked out of the building. Got in his car. Drove across the city. The construction site was chaos. Machinery. Workers. Dust everywhere. He found the foreman. I'm looking for Caleb. The foreman pointed up. Top floor. But he's in the middle of something. You'll have to. The millionaire was already walking. He climbed the stairs. Floor after floor. His heart pounding. Not from the climb. From what he was about to do. He reached the top floor. Saw Caleb. Crouched by an electrical panel. Hands moving with that same certainty. The millionaire stopped. Watched him work. And remembered what it felt like to be dismissed. To be doubted. To be certain and have no one believe you. Caleb looked up. Saw him. Stood slowly. The cable's failing. The millionaire nodded. I know. I told you it would last 6 months. You did. Caleb's jaw tightened. I could fix it. The right way this time. Permanently. The millionaire stepped closer. I know you can. Caleb waited. The millionaire took a breath. 27 years ago, someone didn't give me a chance. And it cost me everything I could have built back then. He looked Caleb in the eyes. I don't want to be that person. Caleb's expression softened. The millionaire extended his hand. I want to hire you. Not for 2 days. Not for a project. Permanently. Caleb stared at him. Why? Because you fix things. Really fix them. And I need someone who remembers what that means. Caleb looked at the offered hand. Then took it. And the millionaire finally understood what had actually been fixed 6 months ago. Not the elevator. Him. 3 years later. The millionaire stood in a building under construction. Not his building. Theirs. His and Caleb's. A training center. Where young people learn to fix things. Build things. Create with their own hands. Where certainty met opportunity. Where no one got dismissed for being too young. The elevator in the East Wing had been replaced 2 years ago. Properly. Permanently. By Caleb. But that wasn't what mattered anymore. The millionaire walked through the workshop. Watched students bent over projects. Hands moving. Learning. Some would fail. Some would succeed. All of them would get the chance. Caleb appeared beside him. No longer a boy. A young man now. Confident. Skilled. The city inspector approved the electrical work. The millionaire nodded. Good. They stood there, watching the students work. Do you ever think about that day? Caleb asked. Which day? When I showed up. Said I could fix it. The millionaire smiled. Every day. Why'd you really give me that chance? The millionaire was quiet for a moment. Because someone didn't give me one. And I spent 27 years wondering what would have happened if they had. Caleb nodded slowly. What do you think would have happened? I don't know. Maybe I would have built something better. Maybe I would have failed. He looked at Caleb. But I would have known. And that matters. They watched a student successfully wire a circuit. The pride on her face, unmistakable. She reminds me of you, the millionaire said. How? She's certain. Caleb smiled. Being certain isn't enough. I know, but it's a start. The millionaire's phone rang. He looked at it, then silenced it. 3 years ago, he would have answered immediately, would have dropped everything for that call. Now he knew better. Your assistant's going to kill you, Caleb said. Probably. The board's not happy about this project. They never are. You're spending millions on something that won't make money for years. The millionaire looked around the workshop, at the students, at the tools, at the hands learning to create. Some things are worth more than profit. Caleb raised an eyebrow. The board of directors would disagree. Then they can disagree. They walked to the window, looked out at the city. The millionaire's empire was still there, still standing, still successful. But it wasn't the only thing standing anymore. Do you regret it? Caleb asked. Regret what? Walking away, stepping back, spending your time here instead of there. The millionaire thought about it. About the meetings he'd missed, the deals he'd passed on, the opportunities he'd let go. About the Tuesday afternoons in that repair shop, learning to use his hands again. About the moment he'd realized what he'd lost. And what he'd found? No. He looked at his hands. They had calluses now. Small scars. Evidence of work. Of things built. Things fixed. Things created. They looked like Caleb's hands. Like his own hands used to look. Before. I regret the years I spent forgetting, he said quietly. Forgetting what? That money can't fix everything. That distance doesn't solve problems. That some things require you to get your hands dirty. He turned to Caleb. That giving someone a chance costs nothing, but not giving it costs everything. Caleb nodded. They stood there in silence. Then Caleb spoke. Thank you. For what? For believing me, when no one else did. The millionaire's throat tightened. You gave me something too. What? You reminded me who I used to be, before I became someone who paid other people to fix things. He looked back at the students. Before I forgot what it meant to build something that mattered. A young student approached. Nervous. Excuse me. Sir, I have a problem with my project. I've tried everything, but I think I can fix it if. The millionaire smiled. Show me. They walked to her workstation. She explained the issue. The millionaire listened. Really listened. Then he rolled up his sleeves. Let's figure this out together. Her eyes went wide. Really? Really? He knelt down beside her project. His hands steady. Ready to work. Ready to fix. Ready to build. Caleb watched from across the room. And smiled. Because 3 years ago, a boy had walked into a building and said 5 words. I can fix this. He'd been talking about an elevator. But what he'd actually fixed was so much bigger. He'd fixed a man who'd forgotten what his hands were for. He'd fixed a system that dismissed certainty because of age. He'd fixed a cycle that repeated for generations. And now, in this building, surrounded by students learning to create, they were fixing something even bigger. They were fixing the future. One person at a time. One chance at a time. One fixed thing at a time. The millionaire looked up from the project, made eye contact with Caleb across the room. And in that moment, they both understood. What was broken wasn't the elevator. It never was. What was broken was the belief that some people don't deserve a chance. That certainty doesn't matter without experience. That youth means inability. And what they'd built here, in this workshop, in this moment, was proof that belief was wrong. The student's project suddenly came to life. She gasped. It works. The millionaire stood, brushed off his hands. It does. She looked at him with the same expression Caleb had worn 3 years ago. Certain, grateful, ready. And the millionaire knew exactly what to say. Good work. Now let's make sure it lasts. Because that's what fixing things really meant. Not just making them work, but making them last. And finally, after all these years, he remembered how.